Edward Whitmore's hands were never idle. Even in retirement, they busied themselves with tasks no one asked him to do, oiling the hinges of the old barn door, straightening stones along the garden path, sharpening tools already sharp. Some habits, he told Martha, were bone deep. 35 years in the army trained a man to never sit still, to anticipate before problems even appeared. But Martha knew better. Edward wasn't chasing efficiency. He was running from silence. Their home on the edge of Millersfield was modest, an old farmhouse wrapped in ivy and whispering wind. Edward had lived in it longer than he'd lived anywhere else, and yet, lately, he moved through the halls as if trying to remember who he was supposed to be in them. Martha, his wife of 40 years, still met each day with practiced warmth. She had learned to read his silences like scripture, deciphering the meaning in every shrug and unfinished sentence. Though they had no recent arguments, an invisible current had been pulling them apart, slowly, relentlessly. "Lucas is coming this weekend," Martha said one morning, sliding eggs onto his plate. "He's bringing someone." Edward looked up from the newspaper. Someone. His fiancée. Emily. He blinked. "Engaged already?" "It's been nearly a year, Ed. Not all boys stay boys forever." He grunted but said nothing. Lucas, their only child, had left Millersfield after college and never looked back. The calls were infrequent, the visits rarer still. Edward carried no resentment. The boy had made a life of his own. What else could a father want? Still, the word fiancé settled awkwardly in his gut. The couple arrived that Friday afternoon. Lucas had filled out with age, wearing a tailored coat and city confidence. Emily stepped from the car behind him, a slight woman with sharp green eyes and the kind of smile that made you forget what you were saying. Edward extended his hand. Emily surprised him by taking it with both of hers. "I've heard so much about you, Mr. Whitmore." "Edward will do." She held his gaze longer than most did. "It's good to finally meet you." Edward wasn't a man easily shaken, but something about her, her tone, her poise, unsettled him. It wasn't beauty, though she had that in quiet abundance. It was recognition, as if he'd seen her before, though he knew he hadn't. Over dinner, Emily asked questions most guests wouldn't. About Edward's time overseas. About how he met Martha. About the old compass sitting on the mantel, untouched for decades. Lucas laughed it off. "She's obsessed with stories. Can't watch a movie without researching the real history behind it." Edward chuckled politely, but inside, a storm began to stir. He hadn't told anyone the full stories of his past, not even Martha. And yet Emily's questions cut with uncanny precision, as if she knew where the unhealed wounds lay. The next morning, Edward was out in the shed, organizing tools by size, a ritual that served no purpose beyond calming his nerves. He didn't hear her approach until her voice floated in behind him. "You always keep things this orderly?" He turned to find Emily in the doorway, sunlight framing her like a portrait. "Force of habit," he muttered. She stepped inside, looking around. "This place smells like memory." Edward raised an eyebrow. "Smells like sawdust and rust to me." Emily smiled, brushing her fingers along the workbench. "Lucas said you built this shed yourself." "Every nail." "You must have been a different man back then." Edward didn't answer. He couldn't explain the chill running down his spine, or the way her presence pulled at something he thought he'd buried. "I love that you kept the military trunk," she said, tapping her hand against it. "That's where the compass came from, right?" He nodded slowly. "You're very curious. I like understanding people, especially the ones who don't say much." With that, she left just as quickly as she arrived. That night, Edward found himself staring at an old photograph he kept hidden behind the books in his office. It was creased from years of folding, the image faded, but the woman in it still looked at him with the same mischief in her eyes. Her name had been Marianne. She was a story he never told Martha, a love lost in the whirlwind of war and distance and duty. And now, impossibly, there was Emily, with Marianne's cheekbones, her cadence, her laugh. It had to be coincidence. Nothing more. On Sunday morning, Harold stopped by. His gait was slower now, but his wit sharp as ever. "Your boy brought home a real stunner," he said over coffee. Edward gave a non-committal grunt. Harold smirked. "Reminds me of someone I knew long ago. Problem is, I married her." Edward cracked a small smile. "Careful now," Harold added. "Temptation's tricky business. Especially when it wears a pretty dress and calls you sir." Edward waved it off, but Harold's words clung to him. Something was happening. Something he couldn't name. A quiet trespass, a bending of air whenever Emily entered a room. That evening, Martha found Edward ironing a shirt he hadn't worn in years. "Since when do you care about wrinkles?" He paused. "Just felt like looking decent for dinner." Martha's eyes narrowed slightly, but she said nothing. At the table, Emily complimented the meal. Lucas scrolled through his phone. Martha's smile was thin and practiced. Edward watched Emily closely. She never flirted, never crossed a line. But her every movement seemed intentional. Each glance, each word like a stone skipping across a still pond, sending ripples where none should be. Later, while cleaning up, Martha said, "She likes you, you know." Edward feigned ignorance. "Who?" "Emily. She listens to you more than she listens to Lucas." He shrugged. "She's polite. She's interested." He met her eyes. "That a problem?" Martha hesitated. "I don't know yet." That night, Edward dreamed of Marianne for the first time in years. They were in the back of a jeep, wind in their hair, laughing at something long forgotten. She turned to him and whispered, "You still don't know how to let go, do you?" He awoke before dawn, the room cold and empty beside him. Outside, the first light crept over the horizon. Edward dressed, stepped outside, and walked toward the shed, heart pounding harder than it had in decades. Inside, on the workbench, was a note. 2 lines. No signature. "You look just like him when you think no one's watching. I need to know if it's really you." Edward read it twice. Then again. In the stillness of morning, with the dew still clinging to the grass, Edward realized something far more dangerous than temptation was unfolding. It was recognition. From both sides. And it had already begun. Edward stood motionless in the shed, the note trembling in his calloused hands. The morning sun cut through the dusty window panes, casting long stripes across the floor like prison bars. His breath caught in his chest, not from fear, but from something more insidious. Memory. "You look just like him when you think no one's watching. I need to know if it's really you." The words echoed inside him like an old wound reopened. No name. No explanation. Just a quiet question that knew too much. He folded the note and slid it into the front pocket of his flannel shirt, as if hiding it could make it disappear from his thoughts. But the ink was already etched behind his eyes. By the time he returned to the house, Martha was setting the table for breakfast. Lucas sat with a steaming cup of coffee, scrolling through his phone. Emily leaned against the counter, hair tied back, face unreadable. But Edward saw it now, the shift. Her gaze lingered longer than necessary. Her posture wasn't idle, it was calculated. "Morning, Dad," Lucas said, not looking up. "Morning," Edward muttered, easing into a chair. Emily set a bowl of fresh fruit in front of him. "Sleep well?" Her tone was innocent, but Edward heard the undercurrent. He didn't respond. Instead, he reached for the salt, hands steady out of force, not ease. Martha glanced between them. Lucas was saying he wants to take Emily to see the old train station. "I haven't seen much of the town yet," Emily said brightly. "Lucas says it's where you two used to take him for ice cream as a kid." Edward nodded. "Best soft serve in Millersfield." Emily smiled. "Maybe we can all go?" Martha looked at Edward. "You haven't been to town in months." "Maybe it's time I did," he said, surprising even himself. Lucas clapped his hands together. Then it settled. But something had shifted. Edward wasn't just agreeing to a trip. He was stepping into the unknown, chasing clarity, or perhaps confession. The town hadn't changed much. The pharmacy still had hand-painted signs. The clock tower still chimed 2 minutes slow. And the ice cream shop, though now run by a younger generation, still served the same vanilla swirl Edward remembered. They sat at a table by the window. Lucas talked about work. Martha asked about wedding dates. Emily listened, nodded, and laughed when expected. But occasionally, her gaze met Edward's, and when it did, the noise around them seemed to muffle. As they walked back to the car, Emily fell into step beside him, just behind the others. "You read it," she whispered. His jaw tensed. "Yes." "Then you know." "I don't know anything," he hissed under his breath. She looked straight ahead. "I think you do." Before he could respond, Lucas called back. "Dad, you all right?" Edward forced a smile. "Just a bit winded." That evening, Edward stood alone in the garden, the same patch of land he'd tended for decades. The rose bushes he planted for Martha's birthday still bloomed each spring. But now, under twilight, even the flowers looked unfamiliar. Emily appeared beside him, as if summoned by the dusk. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. She folded her arms. "You kept her photo." Edward flinched. "How do you?" "I saw it. Last night. I was looking for a book in your office." He didn't believe that, and she didn't pretend it was true. "Her name was Marianne," Emily said softly. He turned to face her. "Who are you?" She met his eyes without hesitation. "I'm not sure yet." The words hit him like a stone. This was no ordinary affair of attraction or misplaced affection. This was a collision of past and present, wrapped in mystery and guilt. "I loved her," Edward said. "Before the war. Before I met Martha." Emily nodded. "She talked about you. Not often, but always with a kind of ache." "You knew her?" "She was my mother." The world tilted. Edward gripped the edge of the fence, knuckles white. "That's not possible," he whispered. "She died 2 years ago," Emily continued.
"Cancer."
"I found letters. Photos. Your name came up again and again." She never said much, but it was enough. His voice cracked. "Why didn't she ever find me?"
"She said you made a choice."
"That she wouldn't undo it." Edward's heart pounded like war drums in his chest. "You came here to what? Find me? Hurt me?" "I came to understand." Emily's voice trembled now. "I needed to see if the man she couldn't stop loving was real." He turned away, voice hollow. "And I don't know yet." Footsteps crunched behind them, Martha's. She paused at the corner of the path, her eyes flicking between them. "Is everything all right?" Edward straightened, voice calm. "Just talking." Martha's gaze lingered. "Come inside. It's getting cold." That night, Edward sat alone in the shed, the photo of Marianne spread before him, Emily's note beside it. His past had arrived in the flesh, wearing the face of the woman he once knew. And now his family, his entire life, hung on a thread he didn't know how to cut or tie. He lit a small lantern, the warm light flickering over the walls of his refuge. The shed had always been a place of clarity, but tonight it held ghosts. He heard a knock, not at the shed door, but at the boundary of his thoughts. A voice. "Martha." She stood at the entrance, arms folded, face unreadable. "I know something's happening, Ed." He closed the photo album. "I can feel it," she continued. "You think I don't notice the looks, the silences, the way she hovers around you." He said nothing. "I found the note," she said, "in the laundry." His stomach dropped. "You're hiding something from me. Something that's not just about now. It's about before." He looked up at her. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." He opened his mouth, but words failed him. "I've stood by you for 40 years, she said quietly. "Through war, loss, and silence. Don't you dare push me out now." He swallowed hard. "She's Marianne's daughter." Martha's breath caught. Edward continued. "She's not just Lucas's fiancée. She came here looking for answers. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know." Martha sank onto a stool, eyes wide. "Does Lucas?"
"No."
They sat in silence, the weight of decades pressing in from all sides. Finally, Martha whispered, "What does she want from you?" "I think she wants to know who her mother really loved. And maybe if it could have been me." Martha's face broke, not into tears, but something worse. Understanding. "You still love her?" "I don't know anymore."
She stood.
You'd better figure it out, Ed. Because whatever's coming, it's not going to wait for you to catch up. She left, door swinging shut behind her. Edward leaned forward, face in his hands. In the distance, the wind picked up, and for a moment, it sounded like a woman calling his name. The sky over Millersfield was unusually heavy the next morning, gray clouds dragging themselves low, like the air itself knew secrets were about to unravel. Edward sat alone at the kitchen table, staring into a cold cup of coffee. The house was quiet, too quiet for a Sunday. Upstairs, Lucas and Emily slept. Or, at least pretended to. Martha hadn't come down yet. He could still feel the echo of her words from the night before. You'd better figure it out, Ed. He was trying. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows. It reminded Edward of bivouacs and border patrols, of long nights in places where the wrong decision meant someone didn't make it home. This strange reckoning with the past felt no different. Emily entered the room in a soft cardigan and jeans, hair damp from a shower, face open and unreadable. "Morning," she said. He nodded. "You sleep?" "A bit." Silence followed. She moved to pour herself tea, careful not to disturb the tension between them. "I told Martha," Edward said finally. Emily turned, eyes wide. She deserved to know. Emily studied him for a moment, then sat across from him. "Then you also know I didn't plan any of this," she said. "Meeting Lucas wasn't a setup. I didn't even know who you were until after we got serious. Until I met him the second time and saw the name." Edward nodded. "But once you knew, I was already in love with him," she said.
And confused.
"I thought maybe it was fate. Some strange, cosmic stitching." "It's not fate," Edward said. "It's a wound trying to heal itself with the wrong skin." Emily's lip quivered, but she held it steady. "I came here to fill in the missing pieces. But now I'm starting to wonder if I've just broken everything." He looked away. "You're not the only one." Later that afternoon, Edward found Lucas fixing the bird feeder out back, struggling with a crooked post. "You're doing it wrong," Edward said. Lucas rolled his eyes. "I'm doing it your way. That's why you're doing it wrong." They shared a rare laugh, brief but genuine. For a moment, they were just father and son, standing on old grass, trying to make something upright again. "You used to love this yard," Edward said. "I still do," Lucas replied. "Wish I had more of it in the city." Edward nodded. "You've done all right for yourself." Lucas paused. "Thanks. That mean you're not mad anymore?" Edward raised an eyebrow. "Mad. You were distant when I brought Emily. I figured it was a father thing. The old man instinct." Edward hesitated. "It wasn't that." Lucas gave a small, understanding smile. "Look, I know she's different. She's intense. Curious. But she loves me." Edward looked at his son, really looked, the conviction in Lucas's voice, the softness in his expression when he said her name. He wasn't a boy playing house. He was a man who had staked his heart on someone and had no idea of the storm gathering just beyond his vision. "She's lucky to have you," Edward said. Lucas grinned. "I like to think we're both lucky." Edward didn't reply. By evening, the house had settled into a cold quiet again. Martha had taken her tea upstairs. Lucas was on a call with his firm. Emily stood alone in the living room, gazing at the old compass on the mantel. Edward approached her quietly. "That belonged to Marianne," he said. "It got me through Algeria, Bosnia, 3 years in South Sudan." Emily didn't turn around. "I always wondered why she kept talking about a man she never saw again. I thought maybe she'd imagined you. That no one could carry that much silence and still mean something." "She meant everything once," Edward admitted. "But I chose a different road. And I walked it until my feet bled." Emily finally turned to face him. "I don't know how to carry this," she said. "All of it. Who you were. Who you are to Lucas. Who I am in the middle of all this." "You're not in the middle," Edward said. "You're the point everything revolves around now." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I should leave," she whispered. "Maybe. But if I go without telling Lucas, it'll break him. If I tell him everything, it might break him worse. Edward's voice was quiet. There's no version of this that ends without pain. But pain doesn't always mean damage. She looked up at him. Then what do we do? Edward stepped back. We stop pretending this is just about history. Or closure. Or curiosity. Then what is it? A reckoning. Martha called a family dinner that night. Roast chicken, red wine, green beans sautéed in garlic, her signature dishes. The ones she cooked when things were fraying, and food was her only language of control. Everyone sat at the table. The weight in the air was palpable. Lucas raised a glass. To family, he said. Martha smiled thinly. To truth, she corrected. Edward and Emily exchanged a look. Lucas laughed awkwardly. That's oddly cryptic, Mom. Martha set her fork down. I think we've all been avoiding something. Emily's breath hitched. Martha, Edward began, but she raised a hand. I'm not here to expose anyone, she said. I'm here to remind you both that I exist. That I've loved this man for 40 years. That I gave my life to a marriage that was built on loyalty, not fantasy. And if this family is going to burn down, I'd like the courtesy of watching it happen with my eyes open. Lucas frowned. What are you talking about? Silence. Emily stood up. I need to tell you something, she said.
Her voice was calm.
Her hands weren't. Lucas's eyes widened. Emily. She looked at Edward, who gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. I met you before I knew who your father was, she said. Before I knew anything about his past. But once I did, I kept it to myself. Lucas's face went pale. What are you saying? My mother was someone your father loved. Long ago. Before he met your mother. Before either of us were born. Lucas blinked, his chair scraping as he leaned back. Wait, are you saying you're… No, Edward said firmly. She's not your sister. That much we're sure of. But you knew her mother, Lucas said, staring at Edward now. You loved her? Yes. Lucas looked like a man who'd stepped off a ledge, without realizing the ground was gone. And you knew this, Emily? You knew this and said nothing? Emily's voice cracked. I didn't know how. Or when. Lucas stood, fists clenched at his sides. You both lied to me. You stood in my house and… It was never a lie, Edward said. It was just too much truth. Too fast. Lucas backed away from the table, shaking his head. I need air, he said, storming out the door. Emily looked at Martha, tears now streaming freely. I didn't mean for this. I never meant for any of this. Martha, stone-faced, picked up her wine and drank deeply. I believe you, she said. But belief doesn't fix broken things. Edward stood on the porch that night, staring into the dark yard. He could barely make out Lucas's silhouette near the tree line, pacing. Footsteps approached behind him. Emily. He won't come back inside, she said. Give him time, Edward replied. She stepped beside him, arms wrapped around herself. I don't know what happens now. None of us do, he said. But something has to, she whispered. He looked up at the sky, stars breaking through the cloud cover. His voice was low, measured. Tomorrow, you and Lucas leave. You give him space. If he wants answers, he'll come looking for them. But don't chase him.
And you, she asked.
I'll be here. With the choices I made. With the woman who stayed. Emily nodded slowly. Goodbye, Edward.